back with episode 11 of Saloon Sports, and we're going to get into a more normal schedule as things go on. Again, as we said, that as things finish up with the NFL season, and as MLB offseason heats up, we're doing a little thing test on how we're going to go for next season. But as far as the Cowboys are concerned, since the last episode, they defeated the Washington Redskins pretty handy, 38-14, in a game that was pretty one-sided. But digging into the details of the game, there are still some things that Cowboys need to work on, and also the playoff picture is still not cleared up. The Cowboys still need to win out. And last night, the Falcons were able to beat the Saints, which makes the situation a little bit even more difficult. So there's a lot to go through. I guess we'll start with the game this past week. And what were your immediate takeaways from the Cowboys and Redskins?
It was a win. We desperately needed a win. It was an ugly win. But at this point in the season, the way take any win we can get. First off, I was impressed with our defense. Rod Marinelli, defensive game plan for the Redskins. He did exactly what I wanted him to do. Just he showed more creativity on especially pre-snap. There's a lot of movement going on that really confused the Washington offensive line and allowed our defensive line to get pressure on Cousins and create some early mistakes. Unfortunately, a lot of those early mistakes, our offense was unable to, which was really much on my part. Is just to get good field position and a turnover from our defense. We just weren't able to move the ball and ended up punting. I want to say for the first 5 drives, we were able to get a touchdown once we got the ball in the 50, or even after the 50. That was nice. And then Brian Switzer, I believe on the following one, he was able to take that punt back for a touchdown, and that's really when the game started to get out of hand. Alfred Morris had a big game, but most of those rushing yards came after the game was already out of reach. The defense was gassed. So we needed the win, but I'm still not impressed with what I saw offensively. There's still a lot of room to improve, and I think we will moving forward in our schedule coming up.
Yeah, I think one of the major things I saw, most of the improvements came from the defensive side of the ball. There was a lot of different packages that Rod Marinelli and his staff decided to implement. Kayvon Frazier had a much bigger role on the defense. I mean, technically, when you look at how he was used close to the line of scrimmage, he was basically used as a hybrid linebacker during this game. He was in during running downs. They did not put him in pass coverage, which is his biggest weakness, and he played straight downhill and made solid tackles. Byron Jones was the odd man out in the secondary for the most part, where he was pretty much relegated to a package player and came in to play down in the slot or against a tight end. And of course, Anthony Brown was also benched in favor of Chidobe Awuzie, who played a great game there. And I think that was the best thing to see, is that the changes were made last week. We were harping on that, is that something needs to be done on both sides of the ball to make up all the loss of Tron Lee. And the defense did that. The offense, getting that in a bit, they didn't really do much different. I did like what I saw from the defense, and the pressure, the sacks came back. But it was pretty much the biggest problem was what was going on behind the defensive line when Shali is not there, and they managed to make it work against the Redskins with new packages and just more creativity. So that was great to see. Now, as you said, on the offensive side of the ball, I will say like even when Zeke is in their deal is just to pound and pound away at the with the running game until you get in the second half and the defense just can't stop it anymore. But when it came to the passing game, there's something systematically wrong or something there. But I don't really know. It just looks bad with what the passing game. And I don't know. They need to have more creativity there because it's just not working.
No, it's not working. The main problem with the offense is that it is very vanilla, for lack of a better term. If you look at a team, if you look at them, like what they can do offensively is the table. They have a running game with Ajay and especially a power run game that they have with Blunt, able to do a lot more in the passing game, like with Ertz. Well, I guess Ertz is a Witten, so that gives you more of a mismatch against the defense. But with the wide receivers, they do a lot more in their routes, more complex, I guess. But that complexity opens up things, which is something that we don't have and haven't really had in a few years, especially since we've gone towards this power running game. That's not a knock at the power running game because the power running game. Sorry. But we need more to accompany that power running game.
It's like they use Lucky Whitehead, who's not as athletically as good as Ryan Switzer, a lot more in the offense, but they haven't done those same things with Ryan Switzer, and that's kind of a problem, I think. And then there's definitely ways to use what you have better, but as I saw some breakdowns, even when they play 21 personnel, 2 tight ends and a back, it's highly unlikely that a tight end not named Jason Witten goes out in a passing route. And I think that's a little bit of a problem. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. But you never see anything. I think one of the biggest things, the problem is there's no real vertical passing threat or attempts at it. Sometimes they try it with Bryce Butler once a game, and that's it. They don't try to use that. We rarely see Ryan Switzer and Cole Beasley on the field at the same time in trying to use those kind of mismatches. But I think the problem is there's nothing keeping defenses from packing in the middle of the field, which hurts Witten and Beasley, because that's where they kind of operate underneath. And teams this year have just decided to say, hey, we're just going to play single coverage on Dez for 99% of the snaps. It's not that high, but they're pretty much manning on Dez and saying, well, he's not even getting that much separation, so we'll just do what we can there. And it's worked. He hasn't had a 100-yard game. He hasn't had a big breakout game this season. And Scott Linehan hasn't adjusted to that. And that's my problem too with the passing game. Like, to win out for the rest of the games this season, you're either going to have to depend on your defense getting 2 or 3 turnovers a game, or you're going to eventually at some point have to pass the ball to win the game. You have to account for that and try to be more creative and help your players out, putting them in more better positions on that aspect of the game. Some of that is on Dak Prescott. With his accuracy down the field, sometimes it's not as good, but a lot of it does also come down to what is the team doing to help that out. You don't see any screen passes. You don't see any kind of creativity to help open up things underneath to help the entirety of the offense. So there's just some things that I'm worried about, especially when we transition over into the game this week against the Giants. And that's an entirely different conversation what's going on this week. We talked about it on the show, and I'll let you go into all the changes that they've gone through with firing the head coach McAdoo, general manager as well, who I've honestly said that's the biggest problem the past 2 years. They have a general manager who is not addressing the obvious flaws in the team, but there's a lot going on with the Giants. Reasons why you would think this game should be a win for the Cowboys, but it could be a problem.
Yeah, well, obviously the Giants' biggest problem, the thing that the general manager refused to address, was their offensive line. They have a quarterback. It pains me to say this about a Giant, but I would consider him a great quarterback. He's on the same level as Tony. He's on the same level as Tony Romo, but with 2 rings. Less athletic, but as a passer, he's as good as Tony Romo. It pains me to say that, but he is. He could have been a lot better with an offensive line. He hasn't had anything, and the Giants' inability to improve that via the draft or free agency is really shown through this season. McAdoo and company, they were banking on being able to coach up their guys to give them adequate protection, distribute the ball to his great wide receiving core before they all went down with injury. There's no spin with the Giants team this year, and that was just capped off by McAdoo being fired on Monday, Eli being named the starter again. Essentially, I think the biggest difference in this game is going to be our defensive line against our offensive line. I think if we can get enough pressure on Eli, he's going to make his mistakes. While the Giants' defense is formidable, I think we should be able to mount a good enough running attack against them. The passing game with Dak Prescott and Des Bryant.
Yeah, Eli is an interesting. We could probably have a show just about the career of Eli Manning. Cowboys fans in general give him too much flack, and Giants fans give him too much credit because the Super Bowls came off of a dynamic defensive line who could press rush against anybody. Eli is, if you wanted to rank Eli now in the NFL, which at this point he's probably at the bottom of tier 2, if not a top 2 or 3 quarterback. But throughout his career, he's never been a tier 1 quarterback. He's always been middling around middle tier 2. He's just had a lot around him, especially on defense. Where Romo for years didn't have a running game, didn't have an offensive line, sometimes didn't have a defense. So there's a lot to say there, but the situation last week with Geno Smith and all that, and Jerry Reese, it seemingly seems like he had a lot to do with the decision to bench Eli and keep him active, even though they said they wanted to see Davis Webb play as well, which made a little sense. You just have to assume that in the locker room there is problems with the Giants. And I don't know. You just have to. That's why this game is hard to predict. The Giants could honestly go out there and play because they really play net because they don't have a lot of talent. They don't really have a running game. They don't have an offensive line. Their offensive line has been terrible for years. That's Jerry Reese's biggest downfall is that he did not think. Whether it was the scouts, whether it was the coaches, he did not think enough. It's like, maybe we should go out and draft an offensive lineman in the first or second round instead of drafting another glorified wide receiver in Evan Ingram who really can't block to save his life. And they didn't really need any more weapons to throw to. So, I don't know. It's hard to look at this game because I think on paper, the only thing they have left is their defense. But Janoris Jenkins is out for the rest of the year, so that hurts them on the back end. This game is either a trap game or the Cowboys will run away with it. But there's so much at stake here. You hope the Cowboys come out and realize that you're playing against a team that's 2-10. you need this game to keep your playoff hopes alive. Go win. Just win. And I think that's also, I mean, that ties into like Scott Lee's going to play this week. Lyle Collins has missed all week with a back injury, so he may not be at right tackle. It doesn't look like Dave Irvin is going to play because of concussion. That's a huge loss. But you still have enough. They should be able to win this game. Am I a little bit worried? Yes, but it's still a really depleted team that's going through some inner turmoil. You would hope they can make this game work.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason that I have any worry about this game is because we've just been very inconsistent from week to week. Week we're good, well, then we're bad. Well, except we've been bad for a month now. But I mean, how much talent we have versus the talent that are just not on the field because of injury. I don't think this is going to be a close game. I think the offensive coordinator for New York, he'll probably come up with a great play sheet or a great order plays where he'll probably score in the first couple drives. But after that, once he has to react to what the defense is showing, and considering we're a brand new defense this late in the season with the new players and the new scheme that's being implemented, I think that's just going to be too much for New York. And hopefully we don't show too much new scheme that Marinelli seems to be playing with into Oakland and Seattle and Philly for the rest of our schedule.
You know, I think that's actually something that's worth having a conversation about. And also, with Sean Lee being back, are they even going to still show the same type of look? That's also an interesting conversation to have. I hope they kind of do stick with it a bit. But the inconsistency the team had, just like going back and looking at the game, starting with the Falcons game, Falcons through the Chargers game, where the Cowboys scored a grand total of like 20 points, basically, or just around 20, 24, 25 points throughout those games, if that. Is this a talent problem with the Cowboys, or is this a coaching problem? Is it a mixture of the two? Why can the team go through? Or again, I guess the monkey in the room there is Ezekiel Elliott. What is the problem? Because I mean, even with Elliott, they had some games this year where they didn't really play all that well. But that was more on the defensive side. So what is really the issue where this team is having problems being consistently good?
Well, I mean, I hate to just staff constantly. I feel like I'm doing it every time I speak, but I think it's Marinelli's ability to adapt both who he's playing the other team with. Like the personnel that he has going into each game, like he refuses to adapt his offensive scheme to that. And
What do you mean Linehan?
Injuries, though, is when you don't have that type of consistency on the offensive line, very hard to have that same type of offensive production week in and week out.
Scott Linehan, I'm still not sold on, especially for the Atlanta game, that Ezekiel Elliott would have made all these problems go away. I think it's a deeper issue, like, again, with adjustments. Scott Linehan still hasn't really made any adjustments in offense. Ron Marinelli finally did against the Redskins. And a lot of the times they keep saying we're going to do what we're going to do because that's what we do, and we're going to do it well. I mean, if there's one thing you can adapt and say that any kind of athletic competition is about, it's making adaptations to who, as you said, who you're playing with and who you're playing against. It's not as simple as we're going to do this and we're going to try to do it better than everyone else. When it's not working, just keep going. We're just going to perfect it. I mean, I think it's a mixture of both. Honestly, I don't think they have the wide receivers, the down the field threat at wide receiver to make what they want to do on offense as effective as it needs to be. Last year, did that work? Yes, it worked. But teams were not playing the Cowboys the same way. They weren't playing Dez Bryant the same way, and that's kind of the biggest difference. Teams have decided after looking at the tape, okay, Cole Beasley is a big problem, mismatch problem. We're going to try to bracket and take him away while we're just going to go try and see if we can cover Dez Bryant one-on-one for the most time. And teams have basically accepted if Dez Bryant beats us, fine. But we don't want Cole Beasley to beat us because there is no way we can cover him one-on-one. Teams have accepted that and said, we can't do it. There's not no slot corner in the NFL that can do that. So they took him away. And Dez has not been able to consistently be what you would say is an elite receiver and be one-on-one coverage. Like he's been taken on, go down the list of cornerbacks he's played against this year, and there it is. I mean, it's easy to, it's just there. It's the truth. But you, as a coach, you have to adjust against that, whether it's to just run more vertical routes, use pick plays, even though I hate them with a passion. I don't think they should be illegal, period. To do something different, use Dez in a different way. It's just the passing game just looks bad, and it's not creative. Like the running game, for the most part, I'm fine with. It's still averaging what you want it to average. And last week, Alfred Morris showed up. He played extremely well in the defense. Offensive line played well, but I don't know. There's still issues there, especially if they're going to win out. They're going to have to fix them quickly, and I don't see the willingness to change. And that's scary. That's the scary since it's not working now.
Underlying theme, our downfalls this season, it is that willingness to change. And after all, this season is done with, and whatever happens, happens. If Will McClay and people who are in charge of scouting and the draft, if they don't see that the area of position that we need to upgrade on offense is receiver, get rid of Dez. I'm just saying, get somebody instantly good on the opposite side of Dez. Then I'm going to start losing faith in the direction that we are going in as an organization. Have a good defense, that's fine. But if we're unwilling to problem and try to address it, then what are we doing?
I mean, I guess the issue around that is with the Cowboys more than probably any other franchise in the NFL, that's your owner is going to at least play a role in the fact that you have to convince him beyond an unreasonable doubt to go in that direction, since he still has propensity to like, oh, I like a splash thing. Like it's been recorded. He didn't want Zach Martin. He wanted Johnny Manziel. That would have put this team back 5 years if that had happened. So I mean, and also another little issue is that Will McClay has evidently been courted by other franchises. Hey, we'll make you the actual GM.
Yeah. Will McClay deserves to be the GM. Like, I'm saying this, but I've always said it. Because of Jerry Jones, we're not going to win another Super Bowl anytime soon. Like, as long as he's decision making, it's just not going to be there, because he makes decisions with his emotions way too much.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is getting some of the season and draft hall, which we're actually going to get into soon, probably starting next week. Getting into some of that talk. But I mean, they do have people on the roster right now. They can try to at least do something different. I mean, Bryce Butler has shown when he catches the ball, one. And when they at least show that they're willing to do it, he can go down the field and he can beat guys one-on-one, get separation down the field. He might be the only one outside of Ryan Switzer, but Ryan Switzer is sub 6 foot, so he's kind of see down the field that can do that consistently. Like he beats one-on-one coverage on the field, but they won't decide to use him in that way. It's like basically right now it'd be like, Bryce, we're going to put you on the outside. We're running you at least 3-4 plays a game where your job is you're running a go route, you're running a post, beat one-on-one coverage. We're going to throw you the ball no matter what to at least show the defense. We'll take the top off of your coverage because we have someone that can beat you. They don't do that consistently. They just don't do that, and that's a problem with the offense because all you have to do is show that. Then you can convince them, oh, maybe we can't afford to bracket Beasley because 70 yards isn't as bad as 10 to 12 yards. So okay, take Beasley. We'll try to cover him one-on-one. That opens up Beasley, and you can dink and dunk down the field and run all you want because you have the threat outside to like we'll go down the field.
Absolutely, yes.
They don't, but I mean, so they do have people on the roster to try it more with. They try it a couple of times a game. Sometimes the ball does go to Bryce, and more so than not, he will make a play. He's dropped one, and he got maligned for it because of the sun. But do it more. Even if he catches 75% of those balls, that's still 75%, and those are splash plays, which the team doesn't have a lot of. So I mean that's just one of the problems I've seen. And was like, you've got him. He's shown that he can beat one-on-one coverage consistently and get separation. Use it. But I mean, as it comes to this week, I mean, I'm not trying to look over the Giants, but if you just look at their offense, there's not much there. They can't really run the ball. With Sean Lee back, I'm not really worried about them running the ball. And if Frazier plays up on the line of scrimmages again this week, there's no reason why Marinelli should go away from that. I don't have any faith at all that the Giants will be able to run the ball. They still have one of the worst offensive lines in the NFL.
And one of the worst receiving cores, too.
The receiving cores are broken. If we look at from next year, we'll get into Pro Football Focus and break that down. Basically say, the offensive line is horrible there. I'm not trying to overlook them, but I just think that if Cowboys just show up, show up and play average game, you win. If you play a good game, you'll beat them by at least 14. There's just not a lot of talent there on this offense, and that's just what it is. They they tried to help Eli, but they didn't help him in the way that he needed the most and have people in front of him who are competent blockers. So, I mean, that's that when it comes to this game. But related to the playoffs schedule this week, again, we mentioned in the opening that unfortunately the Falcons were able to beat the Saints, and the Falcons need to lose 2 games for the Cowboys for tiebreaker over them. And there are also other games this week that Cowboys fans definitely need to look out for if you want the Cowboys to go in the playoffs, certain things have to go right for them. But it all comes down to Cowboys need to win this game, period. And I'll let you get into some of those games, and we can talk about what the Cowboys need to happen to have the best chance of getting in the playoff.
The first one that I see right here that's really sticking out to me is the Vikings and the Panthers. The Panthers are really coming on up until last week against the Saints. They lost against them. The Panthers are very good. He's back. He's playing very well. But offensively, the Panthers have no running game outside of Cam Newton. So they're very one-dimensional there. They have Greg Olsen coming back. I think Greg Olsen's enough to actually make the Panthers a playoff team. Vikings are just so much better. Casey Keenum is playing lights out. There's nothing more you could ask of Casey Keenum from the quarterback position. And Stephon Diggs are right now probably a top 5 1-2 punch as far as wide receivers are concerned in the NFL. Like the wide receivers, that's going to be a big one. We really need the Panthers to lose, and I think that will happen. How do you feel about that game moving forward?
The Panthers are the worst good team in the NFL. That's probably the incorrect way to say it.
Yeah.
But they are. I have no, like every time I see the Panthers play anyone, I'm like, they should lose. Like I don't. This is a team who probably should be 6-10, but they're somehow 8-3 right now, 8-4. I mean, on paper, it's not even. On paper, the way the Vikings are playing, with their defense, with how Case Keenum is basically giving the middle finger to every single detractor he's ever had in the NFL, and with Stephon Diggs and with honestly, I can't really off the top of my head think of a receiving duo that scares me more than those two, because I'm just like, take your pick. You're not going to double even one of them, leave the other guy in single coverage. I'm not doing that. To be honest with you, if I was defensive coordinator, I'm like, you're just going to stay zone because they're not getting beat up by either one of these guys. And the Panthers, Cam Newton gets a pass for almost everything he does because he was a first overall pick. Panthers need him to be a consistently close to elite quarterback, which he is not, for their offense to look competent. The defense is good, but if Cam Newton doesn't just have a great game, their offense is pretty bad. So I think the Vikings win that game. It shouldn't be close because unless Keenum falls off, but there's just too much on offense for that team, and that Vikings defense will light people up. I would advise the Panthers to tell Cam Newton to stay in the pocket, because if I don't care how big you are, they will hit you a lot. That defense, coached by Mike Zimmer, former Dallas Cowboys defensive coordinator for close to a decade. Pretty close to a decade, I think he was in the Cowboys. That team is just really good. Like to me, the Vikings are the best team in the NFC. And I don't really think it's close at this point. So I mean that game, the Panthers need to lose that game, and they need to lose a couple of games coming up. But yeah, definitely this game, I don't. Even though the Panthers are at home, I don't see how they beat the Vikings if both teams play close to their best, because the Vikings are just that much better and they're just that good. The Cowboys need the Panthers to lose that game, and I think they will. I just don't see how this team decides to wake up and as you can tell, I just don't have faith in the Panthers at all to beat other teams.
It's tough to have faith in the Panthers. All right. Moving forward, another team that we need to look at is Seattle, off against Jacksonville this weekend. It's going to be a very good game. I think Leonard Fournette, obviously, he's going to get the rock a lot. Jacksonville might have the best defense to stop Russell Wilson and his playmaking ability. Obviously, Seattle has a terrible offensive line. Jacksonville is pretty good. And Jacksonville has a very good secondary as well to cover those fast that Seattle has. The biggest difference, I think, is probably going to be the matchup with Jimmy Graham. If Seattle's able to get Jimmy Graham the ball enough in the red zone, they'll have enough to win. But I think Jacksonville can give them a run for their money with the Legion of Boom hobbled and kind of diluted a little bit.
Yeah, to me, I've already conceded a playoff spot to take your poison, Seattle or Rams for the wild card. I kind of given that one of those up because, yes, the biggest thing about the Jaguars are Blake Bortles is just not where the Jaguars made a huge mistake by drafting him instead of Bridgewater. I thought Bridgewater was the best quarterback in that draft. Um, Blake Bortles, I think at the time I had him as the third or fourth best quarterback in that draft. They decided to go with Bortles, and Bortles is looking like he wants to be a career backup. That's the big thing. Yeah, their defense, the Jaguars' defensive front is they're going to make Wilson's life miserable. They improved that left tackle, but the rest of the offensive line is still bad. Yeah, Cowboys fans have to hope the Jaguars win that game, but Russell Wilson is playing like an MVP, so it's hard to bet against them, especially with the way the Jaguars' offense is.
Fight against them last week is not the case.
Oh yeah, they beat up the Eagles, which I said the Eagles have glaring holes on their defense that teams just haven't been able to exploit because their offense keeps scoring. Yeah, I mean the way that goes, I mean, it's yeah, you got to hope the Seahawks lose, but I'm just in that at this point I'm thinking I don't think Russell Wilson to me is a top 5, maybe top 3 quarterback in the NFL right now, and it's hard to bet against those guys.
Yeah, it's very tough to argue that. Russell Wilson's playing lights out. How he's able to moves in the pocket and extend the play, horrendous offensive line, and still get the ball downfield, sort of remarkable what he's doing right now. He's playing himself into an MVP right now.
Yeah, I'm actually pulling up your schedule right now. Basically, this the fin why I just don't. You just one of those teams from the NFC West are just going to take one of the wild card spots. Because yeah, they pretty much handled the Eagles without having almost the entirety of the Legion of Boom. I mean, they've got the Jaguars, Rams, Cowboys, and Cardinals next. Cowboys have got to figure out a way to beat them. Even if they manage to win 2 more games, they're pretty much going to get a wild card spot. But I honestly think they might win 3 or 4 of these games. So yeah, that one's tough. That one's tough. I mean, yeah, you got to hope Jaguars pull that one out, and that would move the Seahawks to 8-4 if they lose that game. If they lose that game, and if the Cowboys beat the Giants, Cowboys would be 7-6. So they'd just be 1 game behind them, and if you beat the Seahawks and it comes down to a tie, you've got the tiebreaker over them. So, and I guess the next game would be the the Browns against the Packers. That's the Browns. Yeah, what are your thoughts about that game?
I'm more interested to see what Josh Gordon does. I mean, his first game back after 2 years last week, he looked phenomenal. I'm watching this game. And then again, at the same time, Brett Hundley's made steps forward as a quarterback over the last couple of weeks. It'll be a tight game, but I don't think it's going to be a tight game because of his competitiveness.
Ineptness.
It's going to be a tight game because of the inept on offense on both sides of the ball. Like Brett Hundley, he's made steps forward, but the Packers still don't have much of a run game since Ty Montgomery's gone and Aaron Jones, he may be back if I'm not mistaken, but he's also still injury prone as it looks like at this stage in his career. And then on the Cleveland side, they still have Deshaun Kaiser as a quarterback. It's not going to be a fun game to watch. I'll watch maybe for a quarter or so, but Bay's probably going to come out on top. Again, I would also like to see Cleveland win 1 game this season, if it's going to be one, before Rodgers comes back.
I think that's the interesting thing here. This is the game for the Browns to win. The Packers defense is not that good. And Brett Hundley is playing better. He's not getting enough credit for that, but because if I'm assuming if the Browns win this game, they're not going to try to rush back Aaron Rodgers. This is an injury that Cowboys fans are familiar with because of what Tony Romo had to go through, and there's a possibility he could get hurt again, especially if he plays against the Panthers, who have a physical defense. But yeah, the Packers themselves are not a team I'm concerned about as far as playoff consideration goes. Even though they beat the Cowboys, they play the Panthers, they play the Vikings, and they play the Lions after the Browns. They can literally lose every single game after this, with or without Aaron Rodgers. The Lions is toss up, but not worried about the Lions either. We'll get to their game next. So if the Browns win this game, I'm pretty much just like, okay, Packers are done. They're not going to win out or anything like that. So I'm definitely hoping the Browns get their one win of the season this week at home, so they can celebrate like they won the Super Bowl, or something. The team is so bad, but yeah, that's what I expect there. I mean, if the Browns pull this one out, that definitely gets the Packers out of the way for the most part. If the Cowboys went out, you have to hope they do. I hope Josh Gordon has like 250 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kaiser plays his best game of the season. Those 5 touchdowns. Something like that.
Oh yeah, I'm starting Josh Gordon every fantasy league that I have him.
And I guess the last game the Lions are playing
Tampa Bay.
Yeah, who the Lions playing? Tampa Bay. Yeah. Well, you gotta hope Tampa Bay wins.
If Matt Stafford doesn't play, I think Tampa Bay comes out on top. Just because without Matthew Stafford, the Lions literally have no offense already, and without Matthew Stafford and his golden arm, there's really nothing that they can do. I couldn't even tell you who the Lions' backup quarterback is. I mean, that was like 5 years ago, but I don't know.
I honestly might still be him. Because I knew a lot of Lions fans actually wanted to keep Kevin Orlovsky a couple of years ago. That's how not liked Orlovsky was there. I'll look that up. Keep talking about that next time.
Yeah, I mean the Lions have a good defense. They've got a lot of turnovers, a lot of in the ranking of the Lions are up there. They're able to create a lot on defense, but without Stafford, like I said, they're gonna be on the field a lot more, so they're probably gonna be tired. Tampa Bay having Winston back, I think Crab Legs is going to be able to get the ball to his wide receivers, and like Cameron Brate is really an underrated tight end, especially from the receiving game. He's able to create a lot of mismatches in the red zone and create a lot of big plays. It's a running game, especially Doug Martin is injured. He might be coming back, but I think Barber was their backup. He played all right, but not enough to not going to be an exciting game. Let's say this, but has enough to really make the difference in this game if Stafford plays. If Stafford doesn't play, probably going to go with Tampa Bay.
Yeah, their backup quarterback is a 6th-round draft pick from a couple seasons ago from Michigan named Jacob Ruddock, who has not had any significant snaps in the NFL regular season. So, well, if he plays, well, I don't mind win this game. But looking forward, pretty much it's gonna, if Cowboys and the Lions end up with the same schedule, it's gonna come down to the conference record. I think that's how it'll come down to. But I mean, the Lions have the Buccaneers, Bears, Bengals, and Packers left. None of those teams are what you would call elite, but the Lions could lose any of these games. They're always average middling teams. So I mean, I'm not too concerned over the Lions either as far as the Cowboys come to. I think the Lions could definitely lose against the Bengals. The Bears might upset them because conference game, and evidently that makes a lot of difference. Or a division game. And the Packers as well, if they decide to play Rodgers that game. Or if it's relevant to the Packers, probably won't be, but they could lose that game as well. So I'm not really that worried about the Lions. They could easily lose this game. So pretty much when it comes down to, I guess, the teams I'm most concerned about are Falcons, Seahawks. Falcons, Seahawks, throw the Rams in there. Well, one of those NFC West teams are probably going to get in. So basically it's the Falcons and Seahawks at this point. Panthers, I don't believe in them. If the Panthers beat the Vikings, I will not speak of the Panthers for the rest of the season. I'll give them that credit, but I don't think that's happening. So I mean, yeah, the Cowboys have an uphill battle. They need teams to lose, and they need to win out. I guess since the Falcons decided to not, Falcons, you need them to lose 2 more games. That's the one that hurts. You need them to lose 2 more games since they managed to get past the Saints. So in those regards, it hurts that they pulled that one out. But
yeah,
the Falcons is not very good.
Yeah, and the Falcons' final 3 games are going to be the Bucs, the Saints, and the Panthers. It's really going to be an interesting finish. No matter how it falls, it's going to be interesting to watch who comes out with the NL wild card.
But when it comes down to
the NFC wild card.
Yeah, can the Cowboys win out? That's the question. They've got the Giants,
looking
Raiders, Seattle, and they've got Philadelphia. Can they win those?
All right, we're not concerned about the Giants. The Raiders have been more up and down than the Cowboys have. Was lost to the Giants last week, which is promising. Their defense isn't quite as good, and neither is their offensive line or running game. To see from them coming into this season. So yes, I think we can beat the Raiders. Going into the Seahawks, I think the way their offensive line is, if we can play Russell Wilson, which is a tall order because nobody has been able to do, line is athletic enough to get the job done if the right game plan is. I think we can come out on top because Zeke's going to be back for that game. That's going to give us a big offense back. Without Zeke, we just don't have those explosive plays. It's been lacking. So having that back, I think we have a good chance against the Seahawks. Obviously you can't play the transitive property in football just because the Seahawks crushed the Philly. For us, it's all about how each team matches up against each other, and the way we match up against Philly, there are matchups to exploit. We are able to exploit them with Zeke this time around. Remains to be seen, but I think it's entirely possible to win out.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to rank these games, I'll ask you the same question after. I'm going to go from least worried to elite, or I'm going to go from most confident the Cowboys can win the game to the least confident the Cowboys can win the game. Even though this game on Sunday is an away game in the cold Meadowlands, I'm going to say most confident the Cowboys beat the Giants, because if you don't beat this Giants team, then just go home anyway. What do you expect to do in the playoffs? You can't beat this Giants team. So, yeah, most confident about that game. Second most confident game, even though this is all on the road, is the LA Raiders. Are they in LA yet? Are they still Oakland? I don't know.
No, they're still in Oakland.
Just so I know, yeah, they want to go to Vegas.
No, they're not going to LA. They're going to Las Vegas, but that's not for another
Yeah,
2 years, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they want to go to Vegas. I keep getting confused with all that. But yeah, even though they have Marshawn Lynch, their offensive line is not playing all that well. Derek Carr is having some struggles. Even though, I mean, there'll probably be just as many Cowboys fans in Oakland than Oakland fans. So I'm not really that worried about how the crowd's going to be. So you got to hope they can squeak out a game there. Those are two games I'm really confident about. The game, I guess the third one in confidence is actually the Eagles game. I've said this a couple of times. Watching some of the tape I have on the Eagles, their linebacking core is not that good. Their cornerbacks are not great either. They depend on the defensive line and great secondary play or great safety play from Malcolm Jenkins. If you can run the ball down their throat, they will fade away. Seahawks beat the turd out of them. So if you can do that against the Eagles, I think with a healthy Sean Lee, which is always a question, this defense can do enough with the help of a running game and controlling the ball and beating down the Eagles defense to win that one. That's a 50-50 one for me. The one I'm most worried about is the Seahawks, even though that game's at home. Russell Wilson, I've always liked Russell Wilson since he got in the league. I remember the day he was drafted in the third round by the Seahawks, and Tannehill was a first-round draft pick. I think I tweeted years ago, I was like, yeah, Russell Wilson's going to have a better career than Ryan Tannehill, without a doubt. That's not even a question anymore. So their Seahawks don't have the same defense, and are not going to have the same defense at the time of that game, but Russell Wilson makes everyone on offense better. He's made Doug Baldwin a legit number one receiver when for years I was saying there's no way Doug Baldwin's anything more than a third option. But Doug Baldwin's like all player every year playing with Russell Wilson.
Yeah, and Tyler Lockett is a number 2.
Yeah, I hate when people say "Who are you?" type thing because it doesn't matter. You don't need to know someone's name from a play well, but Lockett is not a number 2 receiver. He does not have that. He's a fast guy. That's all he really does well.
He's a kick returner.
So
he's a kick returner.
That's the game I'm worried about. If they beat the Giants, they beat Oakland, and when that game comes up, I'm gonna be like, well, you need to play your best game of the season right now. So, how do you rank the game from most confident to least confident?
Honestly, I wouldn't have a whole lot of difference other than I think I might switch Philly and Seattle just because Philly's a division game and it's gonna be the last game of the season. I'm more if everything goes our way, gonna be the game to in our games. Like it's gonna be very reminiscent of those seasons that we suffered through in the first part of the Jason Garrett era. Out at the end of the season to make the playoffs. If things go that way against a division opponent like the Eagles, hard. It's not going to be a cakewalk. They scare me offensively because of what they can do. Carson Wentz is proven that he's a top 5 quarterback in his second year. And I think he can torch our defense. That being said, if Marinelli is able to take the direction that we took last week and move forward with this new defensive scheme and give Philadelphia something else to look at than they had the last time, even the scales a little bit and probably tip them in our favor, that we can come out on top. A lot of ifs in that scenario. So like I really would. It's really tough to change that order you gave you had, but I would put Philadelphia and Seattle on the same level of my worriness. We play Seattle first. We'd be more concerned about them first.
Yeah, I mean, if everything goes like it was a movie script for Cowboys fans, Cowboys would win all their games up until the end of the season. Eagles would lose out, and that game would be for the NFC division crown. That would be a story of all stories. And if actually, some people like to say that NFL is scripted, that's the story they would write, because that would be a game that would be a flex to a national audience on Sunday night or Monday night, whenever that's going to be. And that would be great TV drama just to hear that story. But the likelihood the Eagles are losing out when you see who they play is not really reasonable to think. They play the Rams, they could definitely lose that. They play the Rams on the road, they could definitely lose that game. Then they play the Giants and the Raiders after that. The Giants is a division opponent, and the Giants could win that game if Eli might lead them to a victory there. And the Raiders aren't terrible; they're just not consistent. And there's no reason saying Derek Carr doesn't have one of those 400-yard games in Philadelphia, and they win that game as well. So, and that game could be huge. But yeah, I mean, that would be a storyline of storylines if that did happen. But Carson Wentz is playing well. I mean, he's doing everything I thought he was doing as I watched him in college. They were playing a pro-style offense. He can make all the throws. He was accurate enough down the field. That's one of the things I liked about him. He was accurate on the deep ball down the field, and he's got a huge arm to make all the intermediate crossing routes that you need to throw hard. I haven't believed in them all year either. They're not. I don't quite put them in the Panthers group of false prophet teams, but I don't think they are as good as they seem to be. And we're going to, again, found out last week against a really good team in the Seahawks, and they didn't show up. The Rams could put a beating on them as well. So we're going to see exactly how good the Eagles are. And I would love – it would be amusing if Eagles is went on this huge losing streak like they always do every year, and it came at the end of the season, and they got sent home by the Cowboys after all the Super Bowl talks, again, from that franchise and their fans every year. It seems to be, we're going to win a Super Bowl. Oh, wait, we didn't make the playoffs. Not saying Cowboys fans don't do it, but still. But, yeah, I mean, I guess that's yeah, I mean, I'm not too worried about the game this weekend, but it's really cold in New York right now. And I know we talked about this a couple weeks ago. The Cowboys ended up losing that game. I forgot which game that was, but they did have an outdoor practice this week to get ready for the elements. So that's a little different from Jason Garrett to basically like, yeah, maybe we shouldn't always just do what we're going to do, because maybe the weather actually makes a difference when you're playing outside. I don't know. That's a weird thought.
No shit.
Oh, yeah. I'm getting a little frustrated with the coaching staff with some of the things they actually say publicly, whether or not it's true or not. It's getting a little annoying that you might be incompetent there. But I guess before we wrap everything up, we can go through the rest of the schedule this week and see what else of interest is happening. I'll let you start to break down the games.
Yeah, so we got 4 picks out of the ways. We speed right through these. I got Oakland and Kansas City.
2 6-6 teams now, because the Kansas City team their defense has fallen off. Yeah, Kansas City, I guess, will win that game because their offense is more consistently dynamic than what the Raiders are showing, and it's a home game for them.
I tend to agree with that. It's still, I've said this many times this season, but there's still so much team speed on Kansas City. last week threw 4 touchdowns and 300 yards, and they still lost. But the problem entirely on offense is just Joe going, and it just hasn't happened. But this team, I think they have enough to come out with the win. San Francisco and Houston. This will be.
God, that's. I don't think anyone cares at this point outside of Houston and San Francisco. Garoppolo's starting his second game? Didn't they? He started last week, didn't he? And they won or something?
I think so, yeah.
Who'd they beat?
Nobody good.
Yeah, I can't remember. Savage is still starting.
They beat the Bears by 1.
I'll take San Francisco because why not? Feel good story.
Yeah. I'm going to go the opposite way. I'm going to take Houston. I think even without J.J. Watt, I think Houston has a better defense than San Francisco. While Tom Savage is best, Hopkins and Lamar Miller on offense is going to beat them over the top against piss poor San Francisco team. Indianapolis and Buffalo.
Yeah, Buffalo. They're still in the playoff hunt somehow. I gotta see if Buffalo wins that game because they're motivated to do so. And you still have to think Tyrod Taylor has a chip on his shoulder, even though they didn't show up against Patriots team last week, where Gronk decided to show his dirty side on the field. But yeah, you gotta take Buffalo there. They have a lot to play for, especially since they're pretty in a race for a wild card spot with the Raiders and KC who play. So Buffalo needs that win, and I'm assuming they're going to play like they need that win.
Yeah, I think Buffalo is going to be able to pull this one out. I think their defense is better than Indianapolis, and I think Tyrod Taylor is better than Brissett, better than Frank Gore. I just think that talent-wise, Buffalo is better. I'm really eager to see Zay's development. I think over the past couple of weeks, he's really starting to come into his own during his rookie campaign. Benjamin out, and he's going to see a lot of targets at least. Tight end position for Buffalo. I think he creates a lot of mismatches. There's more. Buffalo has more. They're just not really playing up to that level of the talent they do have. But out against an Indianapolis defense like this.
And you were right. The 49ers beat the Bears last week 15-14. No one good.
Yeah. Speaking of the Bears, they're playing Cincinnati this week.
How did Cincinnati lose that game? I mean, Jesus. Against the Steelers. That was I just want to say Cincinnati loses out because of that game itself, because you have to try hard to lose a game like that. But what's the think about the Bears are still playing Mitch Trubisky? Yeah, Bengals are going to win that game.
Yeah, I don't think there's really a whole lot to say about this. Trubisky is looking like a bust, but then again,
that's the Bears' fault. That's 100% the Bears' fault.
They're not really doing much with Trubisky. I think this is this is a segment on its own of how they're treating Trubisky. We can get into, but purposes be around 50% for yards, 3 picks. Cincinnati's will come out on top. Dallas in New York. Heard that. Tennessee and Arizona.
I actually did not know Tennessee had been was 8-4. That actually surprised me. I did not think they were that good.
Oh, I had 8
But
and 14.
um, Tennessee can run the ball. Like their running attack is horrifyingly scary. Arizona, I'm getting the feeling they're going to pack it in. Well,
Yeah,
they
and
still
also
have
Adrian Peterson is going to be out, I believe, this week.
oh well, that's definitely not good for their offense. Yeah, Titans are going to win that game.
Yeah. And
It's
the
the
scary thing
biggest
about the
question,
Titans
which
is,
I think the
yeah,
bigger
the scary
question
thing
there.
about the
Oh, but
yeah, the scary thing about their offense is like even what they have on paper, like they haven't really put together an entire game on offense, and they're still 8-4. I think that most of that is a bad division, but the fact that they still haven't been able to put all that together, and DeMarco Murray hasn't really done much in the past month. It's been Derrick Henry that's really loaded and had all the explosive plays on offense. And if they keep that going, if they're able to get more out of Mariota, and it could be somebody to watch in the AFC playoffs against Arizona.
yeah,
Yeah, no question. And now we
yeah,
get to the New York Jets and Denver.
one of those games that is just see the Jets tease their fan base this season by playing well early. Then they decided to stop doing that. But the Broncos are who's starting this week? Is it Simeon again? Like I don't know. It's like is Simeon starting again?
Simeon. Yeah, it's Simeon.
Mhm. Matt Forte has been one of my favorite players since he's been in the league. So I'm gonna just go with the Jets and say they win because the Broncos uh, they haven't showed any consistency at quarterback, and I'm kind of disappointed in that because I thought basically last year was going to be like a rookie year for Simeon, and he was going to see some growth, but he's not grown at all. And Paxton Lynch is what I expected him to be, and not that good on the field. So Jets win that game. It probably will be
Yeah.
a closer than it needs to be, but I think the Jets win that game.
Yeah, no, we briefly mentioned the Philly and Rams game, but we never really came up with a prediction for it. Rams to win. But what do you think's going to happen?
Rams and Rams and the Seahawks are practically the same team, besides the fact of where they get their strength on defense. So, with that being said, um, yeah, I think the Rams are going to again show you why the Eagles have specific holes that make their record a little bit paper esque. I think the Rams beat them up. I think they run the ball on them. I think Goff will be good enough to manage the game along. And I think the Rams defense is going to show that the Eagles running game is not that great as it needs to be for a Super Bowl team. And they're going to make Carson Wentz have to beat them in going against this aggressive style of defense. He might have some problems. Again, he's not a guy you want to blitz that much because he'll break tackles, but I still think the Rams will handle the Eagles significantly because I think they're going to watch a tape of the Seattle game and like, hey, we can do that too. Or we can do it in a different way. And we can run the ball a lot better than Seattle can. So I think the Eagles are going to be exposed in this game.
Yeah, I lost before last week, but what the Seahawks really did was give everybody in the NFL and to beat the Eagles. Like what they did, they beat them and they beat them handily. Like you said earlier, they exposed their weaknesses, and I think given that what you said, that the Rams are almost the same team offensively, the ability of Wilson to beat the Eagles. sorry, that's inaccurate. They're not the same team offensively, but what the Seattle did do is fill their holes, and I think Gurley is one of the most exciting runners in the NFL right now in the run game and out of the backfield with the rack yards. Too much for the Philadelphia defense to handle.
Yeah, I think the Rams and Seahawks they mirror each other pretty much like a mirror. Like you see the same team, but they do the same things in a different way. Like for example, Seahawks get the running from Russell Wilson on offense, but the Rams get it with Gurley because they have a better offensive line on defense. Seattle usually known for the Legion of Boom secondary. Well, the Rams do it more up front, but they still have a pretty solid play at cornerback as well. So they do it in a different way. But I don't see how the Eagles coming off of that game against Seattle somehow with a week of practice, like, oh, well, you when you're that exposed against a similar team, you don't magically flip that in a week. And that's the thing. Before the Kansas City Chiefs beat them, just because Kansas City Chiefs is a track team that plays football on offense, that's just pure speed. You can't really coach pure speed. So the Seattle did it in a different way, basically like, yeah, you can beat this team. And you can do it effectively if you have the coaches willing to put the scheme in and you have the players that can execute it. So I don't see the Rams having much of a difficulty there because I haven't believed in the Eagles all season. They get by because their offense was scoring points with a defense who isn't as good as it would seem, in my opinion.
Yeah, definitely. Next game up is going to be New England and Miami.
I'm done picking against the Patriots. Have fun. Patriots are gonna win that game without Gronk.
Yeah, I don't want to get too far into what Gronk did. Obviously, it's bad. Screw him. Like, that was just uncalled for. That's not what football's about.
Like, and the fact that he only got a game for that. Like, that was.
Yeah, all right. So it really pissed me off about the league. Like, if the league is going to pretend to care about concussions and CTE and their players, then a heinous play like Gronk's needs to be taken more seriously because that's uncalled for. He gave a guy a concussion who was no idea what was going on before that happened. Like, it's just it really gets under my skin that he only got one game. Pardon my language.
Yeah, the player who was hit, had a very candid statement about it. He was like, he came out and basically said the one game suspension was crap and that he was on the ground with his head turned, and he even brought up like, hey, I've got a kid to raise. Like, that play was completely dirty. Like, why? What was the point and purpose? Like, I didn't watch the game live. I heard about a hit and Gronk getting suspended. I'm like, what kind of hit could a tight end make to get him suspended? And I'm like, well, what's the big deal? Then I saw it and was like, wow, I don't care. I don't really care what you say afterwards if you're Ron Gronkowski, because at some point when you're doing things, whether it's on an athletic venture or in life or whatnot, that to me is equivalent to you see some guy, you see a man or woman on the street and you beat the crap out of them for no reason, then immediately you get arrested for it and you're like, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to do that. What difference does it make? Like, what you're saying afterwards is to cover your ass. That's it. Like, that play was bad. And a lot of the NFL, even Jerry was one of the loudest proponents because there's no such thing as CTE. Forget that movie and all that kind of stuff. Like, no, that play, that is on the level of some things that Ndamukong Suh has done. Like, you can't, like, it felt, after seeing the play, I was like, wow, you got a game for this? that's a game that should be like 3 or 4 plays, and people are trying to compare it to the Kiko Alonso hit, and I'm like, no, Kiko actually had some leverage there because I forgot who the quarterback was waited a while to slide and was trying to go for a first down. In that case, the hit itself was bad. The intent probably not as bad because you're trying to stop a first down, and yeah, you're going to try to hustle to keep him for a first down. But this play is literally atrocious. There's nothing to say about it. Like, that's one of the worst things you could do to someone else playing a game when their health is literally in your hands and you do that. That's just, you can't have that in the league. So
yeah.
Now I'll let you go more on about that, but that was just, you can't do that.
My piece as far as that's concerned. And Pittsburgh, good rivalry game in the league.
Pittsburgh is basically.
I think Philadelphia, not Philadelphia, Pittsburgh. I think they have way too much on offense for a good Baltimore defense to deal with. I think it's going to be a good between those two teams as far as that's concerned. And on the flip side, Flacco and his offense is somewhat stagnant. Pittsburgh's defense is fairly good this year, so I think Pittsburgh has more than enough to come out on top.
Yeah, I agree with that, and somehow the Ravens are the top wild card team, right? Or, well, no, they're second wild card team right now. The Jaguars are tiebreaker, lose a tiebreaker with the Titans. So, yeah, that's just weird to say. Like, right now, the Chiefs aren't even in the playoffs in the AFC. And there's a huge log jam for the AFC last wild card spot. But I haven't really seen a Ravens game this year. From what I have saw and highlights, they're not great, like especially on offense. So
no,
if the Steelers don't beat them handily, it's because it's a division game, there's a rivalry, and they know them so well. But when you just look at the Steelers on offense and all the weapons they have and how they actually use them, it's hard to go against the Steelers, even though there's going to be a huge drop-off because of the unfortunate injury to Ryan Shazier on their defensive side. And they had a lot of injuries in that game. So that's where the Ravens have a chance if they can score some points. But I just don't see how they outscore that Steelers team unless they just have a bad game.
Yeah, essentially. And our last game on the schedule is going to be Washington and
the Chargers are at home for that one, right?
Yes. Yeah, it's going to be close.
I don't understand. I don't understand the Redskins. I don't understand Kirk Cousins. I don't understand how the Redskins are handling Kirk Cousins. I don't understand why the Redskins are still called the Redskins. I don't. That team for the past few years has been an anomaly team that's milling around average to good, and they can never figure out how to get good. After seeing the way the Cowboys beat them, like they beat them bad, and they didn't even have the passing game going. Dak threw for 122 yards off 11 completions. I don't see how the way the Chargers are playing, the Chargers lose that game. Now the Chargers are playing for a wild card spot. So
they're not playing for a wild card spot. They're playing for the division.
Oh yeah, they're playing. Yeah, I forgot. Yeah, everything up in that division is 6-6. Yeah. Philip Rivers has always gotten on my nerves. That's another segment we could talk about in the future as to why. But when he's on, he's good. And they have enough, and they still have those two pass rushers on the edge that can make a life miserable. And they don't have the really blitz.
In Dallas that year. Oh, jeez.
I'm not gonna lie. that's who I wanted. I was like, a lot of people were like, well, he's already reached his peak. He's going to be a 7-sack-a-year guy. I'm like, for one, you see it like it's a horrible thing, and two,
Yeah.
I don't think that's true. I was like, 7 sacks a year? Well, no. We can talk about that when it's coming to the gym. Like, yeah, Chargers should win that game fairly easily. With again, can't do the transitive property, but I don't see where the Redskins are going to make Rivers' life difficult.
I know Kerrigan might get to him a couple times, but overall, no, I don't see their defensive line getting there.
Yeah, Phillip Rivers gets rid of the ball quick. Because the Cowboys got pressure on him, it just didn't really matter. So they couldn't cover Keenan Allen because Keenan Allen is now elite wide receiver, top of the list, first tier wide receiver in the NFL somehow against the Cowboys, but still bitter about that. But yeah, Chargers are looking good. They can win their division against some like I don't even know how that's a possibility. Like the Chiefs doing what the Chiefs have done is remarkable. But if they get into the playoffs, no one's going to want to play them. But yeah, Redskins are. Does Kirk Cousins even want to play there anymore? I mean, that's a totally different story. But that's
I don't think anybody's asked that yet. Everybody's wondering about what the front office is going to do. Nobody's asked what Cousins wants to do. But as long as they franchise tag him, it's not really his call, is it?
You can, ish. If they do it again, he'll be paid like $40 million or some absurd amount. There's no way they're going to franchise him again. So,
yeah.
He's already overpaid, in my opinion, but that's a different story. So, yeah, the Chargers were going to probably win that game.
I agree.
And I guess before we wrap up, since we have one show this week, is just I guess since we're going to start getting into the draft stuff soon, since it is that time of year, if you had everything was on the table, you have a first round pick between, we'll say, to be realistic, between 16 and 22 or whatever. You have on your board, you have anything you could want. They're all ranked evenly. What do you pick? Like, what position would you pick?
Well, honestly, I think I'm gonna have to go offensive line. Like I'm not sold with La'el Collins. I think we need to.
I think we may have lost Ben there. He was talking about offensive line that he would take there, but before we wrap up, I will go into what I would do in that situation. And I think the way the team looks, and if you have a pick at that level and you have anything on the table you would want, to me, it comes down to honestly two things in the first round. It would either be a wide receiver with speed, and also, comparable other skills to warrant a first round draft pick, and a will linebacker, because I think in the way the team is playing right now, if they don't have, there's just a huge problem for this team if Sean Lee's not playing. So I would either take a will linebacker or a wide receiver with some sort of speed, because the offense needs that. And the Cowboys fans have seen what this team looks like without Sean Lee on defense. So there's definitely some need there to do that. So it bends back. What were you saying about what you would take? I was just saying that I would take the will linebacker or a wide receiver in that position because I think those are the two glaring things you can see and be needs. A lot of people like safety, but I'm just like you can make do in other rounds to cover that position. But you were saying offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line. Just because I think that I'm not sold with how La'el Collins is playing at that position. I think that we need to address that just because our entire offense with Zeke is run through our offensive line. But with that, everything else falls into place. And like after the first round pick, we can address the wide receiver position or wherever else we need to. But in order for us to put Dak in the best position possible, we need to have that surrounding offensive line to protect him.
So you would take a tackle and not a guard in the first round? Because I would think the way they see things right now, the biggest problem would be Jonathan Cooper, who's up and down. Sometimes he plays really well, sometimes he doesn't. I think from their outlook, they're saying, "Oh, this is Collins' first year playing tackle in the NFL. He'll improve," which I tend to agree. I didn't really like Collins at guard. Like, how would you handle that situation?
From talking about Collins, talking about he's going to improve. Like, I haven't seen any type of improvement over the course of the season. So that's why I'm saying like my confidence in him as a right tackle is kind of shook. That's something to be addressed. I mean, maybe you draft somebody that has that versatility that can play inside and outside. I'm sure we'll keep Collins around because he does have the versatility in college and through his first couple seasons in the pros. He can play guard as well. But I just think drafting a guy that is primarily a tackle official and worth a first-round pick at that point.
Yeah, that's definitely something we'll get into to look at the different depth at different positions because there's definitely a lot of questions to be had. I mean, at some point, the team is going to have to look at a young running back that you invested a draft pick on. And as we've seen with guys like Alvin Kamara and Kareem Hunt, you can get value at running back, really good value at running back in the middle rounds. There's no reason to pick take a first or second round pick on a running back with how productive running backs can be later in the draft because it's an easier position to basically learn at the NFL level, just how it goes. But I would definitely pick a running back at some point in this draft. You have to, I think, at this point, with concerns around Ezekiel Elliott's character, and we've seen what the team looks like without a dynamic speed guy in the backfield. So running back, will linebacker, you've got to get a will linebacker early on that can play if Sean Lee's not hurt and can also fill in other positions. I think it's going to be important. And at some point, this team's going to have to take wide receiver. There's the elephant in the room when it comes to Dez is his contract's up soon, and he's not playing at the level you're paying him to play. He's not even being treated by other teams at the level you're paying him as. So there's going to be a big decision there coming up soon, and it takes a while for wide receivers to adjust to the NFL. So it might be wise to go ahead and get an outside wide receiver in the program to learn what to do and not just make that draft pick if you decide to let Dez go and be like, well, okay, go, you're now the number one receiver for the Dallas Cowboys. Go do that. There's not too many Randy Mosses that come along every year. So,
I completely agree. That's a position that we need to focus on, but we're not to get that type of wide receiver is going to have that impact from day one. You need to be in the top 5, which we're not going to be at. So I'm thinking to address that position is probably going to be in the second or third round, and somebody that we can feed, that we can develop into a Tyreek Hill-esque. Like obviously that's a high bar to set, but same skill set.
I mean, guys can fall. I mean, like Des Bryant fell, Randy Moss fell because of character issues. You can get those kind of players. It's just, do the Cowboys want to do that again with Randy Gregory still serving his year-long suspension? You can get those kind of talents. They just seem to be scared off from any guy with any kind of substance issue. Other issues, not really. But I don't know. I mean, that's definitely a debate worth having, and it's something we'll get into soon because that time is coming up. And I definitely want. I'm actually going to be writing up my first scouting report and reviewing film over. I haven't decided on what position to start on yet. Kind of like quarterbacks, as far as Cowboys concerned, there's no reason for me to start off with quarterback, knowing for a fact the team isn't going to draft one in the first or second round. That would be absurd. But Jerry's still the GM, so never know. But I don't foresee that one happening. But yeah, I do think that the team has some holes to look at, and also I kind of do think it depends on how the season ends up. If they somehow get into the playoffs and get on a run, that might change things. I don't think it should, but as Ben mentioned earlier, Jerry Jones is kind of an emotional guy when it comes to these kind of decisions. At some point, I do think the coaching, Scott Linehan's going to have to change things up because as of right now, if Scott Linehan doesn't change his approach on offense, what's the point in getting that additional outside wide receiver that has speed? Scott Linehan won't use him in that way. That's just, from a guy who had Megatron all these years, that's kind of the surprising part, in my honest opinion, is why would you not try to do something like that? But I guess that is what it is. He doesn't believe in Dak like he believed in Stafford. I don't. It's hard to get inside some of these offensive coordinators' heads. I think that's one of the biggest lagging aspects in the NFL right now is offensive coordinator play or performance. But that's another story.
Yeah, that's a great point. What he was able to do with Megatron in Detroit was outstanding. With him during Stafford's first couple of years, and then just not add to what we're trying to do in Dallas. You can't compare Dez now to what Megatron was, but some of the same aspects of that offense into what we're trying to do. And
I'm not sure if that's more of a Garrett thing or what, but I don't know. Yeah, that's just my biggest concern for the rest of the season is how the offensive coordinator does things and trying to get the offense rolling. And if things fall out of the bottom for the Cowboys, I honestly think that's the move you'll see made. I don't think Jason Garrett's job is in jeopardy, but I do think if things don't look better for Dak Prescott, then there might be time. Then Garrett might make the move at offensive coordinator and get rid of Scott Linehan. Who do you replace him with? No idea, since all the top names are from college world are already signing on elsewhere or whatnot. So that would be an interesting question to ask or throw out there. But at that point, something I think would need to be done there because it's just not looking creative enough. But yeah, that's another story that we'll get into soon enough. But yeah, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you wanted to add and talk about as far as anything?
Yeah, there's one thing that I have in my game notes that I know I didn't mention this game, and that's the play of Jalen Smith. I think he's starting to show that explosiveness that he had in college, and just that glimpse of what we thought we drafted. I think that's going to pay huge dividends moving forward. Maybe not this season, not able to make the playoffs, but moving forward with our defense, I think the future is very bright with him at middle linebacker.
Yeah, actually, that brings up another point. Anthony Hitchens' deal is up. this season. So if the team decides to not re-sign Hitchens, Jalen Smith is going to have to be a big player next year. And that also ties back into the draft. You also draft another middle linebacker, even though you might need a will linebacker as well. So that's he's been showing up with lesser responsibilities and fewer snaps, which is good. You have to hope that he makes the jump next year and turns into what you expected that he would when he's completely healthy. And it's hard to root against him. All reports are that he's a great guy. He's always in a good mood. He tries hard and wants to learn and wants to play well. That's good characteristics to have. So yeah, I definitely hope. And he has played better the past few weeks, and that's definitely a good sign. Quite frankly, you're going to need him to play well, especially if the Cowboys win against the Giants. They beat Oakland. Against Seattle, running linebackers are going to need to play their best game of the season. That's a game where Sean Lee has to be healthy because you're going to pretty much you're spying Russell Wilson every play. Your job is Russell Wilson cannot beat us. Make that not happen all pro will linebacker. And that's a game where if he gets hurt in, damn. that's it.
Yeah.
Because there's no one else that can do what Sean Lee can do. There's very few linebackers in the NFL that can do what Sean Lee can do. So that's one of the biggest things I have is like linebackers got to play well against the Seahawks because if you don't, they're scoring 30. Period. Unless Russell Wilson gets hurt before that game, then no, that's a completely different story. So yeah, that's definitely a good point to make. And I guess I don't know. I guess I'm still a little worried about this Giants game, even though they've had like literally the worst week possible. I can't remember the last time a coach and a GM has been fired on the same day during the season. There's definitely a lot more turmoil going on in that locker room than what they want to say. Eli might feel betrayed because a lot of his teammates were happy that Geno was getting the start. Might be looking too much into that. Who knows? But they played kind of decently last week, so I don't know. Eli's not the greatest quarterback in the world. I don't expect him to make gold out of the dirt they have on offense. It's really disrespectful for what they have on offense right now, but it's basically they're asking him to make all this out of dirt, and there's not a quarterback in history that could make what the Giants have on offense look great. So I guess I'm just worried because it's Eli and it's at the Meadowlands, and if he goes out and plays extremely well, that'd be a great New York story that Cowboys fans will never hear the end of, like the Beckham catch, even though the Giants lost that game. So I don't know. You just have to hope that. I just think the Cowboys come out quickly, get up by 2 touchdowns, Giants will fold. You just can't let a team like that hang around. You just got to beat them up early. They'll fold. Hopefully, you can get your starters out in the fourth quarter, and worry about the Raiders. So, but yeah, that's my concern going forward right now.
Yeah, it's a legitimate concern. The basic thing is we just have to take things one game at a time. I know that's coach speak, but it's not wrong. We need to take care of business on Sunday, beat them handedly. But at the same, when we beat them, we need to beat them in a way that helps our offense progress. And what I mean by that is we just need to bring in a game plan that's not one-dimensional and run the ball. We need to get Dak going. We need to run the ball, get Dak on a bootleg, get him going. Because if we can get him going in a rhythm, I think that'll help us carry over until next week against Oakland. And then once we get Zeke back against Seattle, we can finally start to see that offense that we saw earlier in the season coming back and clicking on all cylinders, moving into our final playoff push.
I definitely agree with that. And Definitely have to hope Dak Prescott's hand is healthy because despite what a lot of fans think, I don't think you want to see Cooper Rush play these games. Like, not even a little bit. I would be 1,000 times more comfortable if something happens to Dak that Kellen Moore would be playing, but that's not what the coaching staff made, which again I question, but whatever on that one. Uh, but yeah, if Dak Prescott gets hurt during the game, do you really want Cooper Rush to go in there and try to win it, or do you want Kellen Moore to try to win it? By no intents and purposes do I think Cooper Rush can win a game in the NFL right now with the way that this offense is playing. So that's another thing to look at with Dak Prescott's hand. And if it's something like that happens, even if Dak Prescott's good to go the next week, if they lose the game, the season is practically over. But yeah, there's a lot to be said about that. But yeah, it's 1 week at a time, 1 game at a time. Cowboys have to win out, period. And everything else needs to play out well. If they can get the 10 wins, they probably get in. But yeah, before we continue going on, but yeah, we'll be back next week and we'll get into more breaking down of what happened during the game, Cowboys playoff hopes then, and at some point we will see scouting reports going up on a site that welcomed it from us, and hopefully getting more attention to our social media and what we are doing. So yeah, that's what we have for this week, and enjoy the game. And as a Cubs fan, I will say, Ohtani, you made the wrong decision. Angels aren't going to go anywhere anytime soon. But anyway, so with that, we will sign off and be back next week.
Sounds good. Take care, everybody.